Resource Rethinking Urban Water Future. The Jeevajala Jeevanadi initiative was conceived as a community driven movement to reclaim, restore, and reimagine the historic Purnaiha Canal in Mysuru. Rooted in the shared commitment of Water Forum Mysuru, Mysuru School of Architecture, and Aranya Outreach Trust. The project recognizes water as a living heritage and as an ecological lifeline. This initiative was further strengthened by the Bengaluru Sustainability Forum's objective and funding. And Jiva Jala Jeevanadi also integrates SDGs, few of the points which I will not be elaborating on this right now. But we also would like to welcome all our knowledge partners, Council of Architecture and Mysore School of Design, but a special mention and welcome to Institute of Urban Designers India, Karnataka chapter, and specifically architect Trivikram and architect Shrikant, whom I know them personally also, and all the other mentors, Anup and Prasanna, all of them. So, and the rest of the team who came forward when we wanted to collaborate as a knowledge partner. They readily accepted and they have been very helpful, providing today Mansee is here with us because of their connect and things like that. Yes. And I would like to request Lakshmi to introduce Dr. Mansee Bal Bhargava, please.
Thank you, ma'am. I hope I'm audible.
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. It's my privilege to introduce our distinguished speaker for today's session, Dr. Mansee Bal Bhargava. Dr. Mansee Bal Bhargava is an entrepreneur, researcher, educator, speaker, and mentor with over 3 decades of experience in the built environment. Her work spans architecture, design, development, planning, management, and governance with a strong focus on sustainability and livability. She has developed particular interest in issues related to water and women and actively works on managing and sharing knowledge in these areas. She is the founder director of the W4W Foundation, a not for profit think tank, and the founder of Environmental Design Consultants, Ahmedabad. Dr. Bhargava also serves as the National President of the Water Resources Council at the Women's Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Recently, she joined an international research initiative on the Trilateral Warden Sea Research Project as a senior researcher at the Institute for Chemistry and Biology of the Marine Environment, University of Oldenburg, Germany. Through her work, she continues to contribute to sustainable development, knowledge exchange, and inclusive environmental practices. We are truly honored to have you with us today, ma'am. I now invite Dr. Mansee Bal Bhargava to deliver her talk. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Lakshmi, and warm greetings to everyone. It's really warm for me. I just came back from 4 degrees to straight away 40 degrees in Ahmedabad.
Okay.
And thanks, Champa, Trivikram, and Prasanna to get me around in this beautiful topic, because I recently also had an opportunity to work on Mysuru's water. Very briefly, I will share my presentation quickly, and then we'll take it from there. And this is just a warning and warming to all of you that my presentation is not a solo talk, but I have a small game embedded into the conversation so that you all are part of the conversation. Do you see my screen or no?
Yes, we do. Yes.
Okay. So let me just do the slideshow. Is it in slideshow mode?
Yes, now yes.
Okay, wonderful. So the title has been already set up, and I think I can straight away jump into what we are going to talk about. And this is your abstract, not mine. So I just picked it up from the website of MSA and the whole project. And I'm picking up 3 major points from here, and that is what is important for me. And I'm setting my presentation around it, and I highlight what and how to focus matters, and why relationship between citizens matter, and does design really matters. So these are the 3 things I'm highlighting from your own abstract, which you have shared. Okay, I have a new laptop, so I am also struggling to see how it works. Let me know if the slides are changing. Okay, is it changing?
Yeah, it's changing.
Yes.
Okay, so you see the agenda, right? Do you see the agenda
That's
page or
right.
the abstract page?
Yes,
Yes,
yes, ma'am.
we do see it. Yes.
Okay, wonderful. So we go through the background, which is your work, then the foreground, which I'm going to set the tone, and then we go through two theoretical aspects, which I would like to offer to the whole Mysore collective to work towards their water systems. And then we'll look at some changes and case studies that is required for us to keep enlightening us. And I'm actually not going to focus on the last part more because this is a design fraternity, and I'm assuming most of you know all these case studies, but definitely the changes. So here you on the screen, you see a Menti. Please take out your mobile and log into menti.com, and or you can put the barcode or you can also put the passcode. You have two options. Passcode is 15394365. And I will also play the game with you and then we take the talk. Okay. Are you with me? 15394365. If you can give a digital hand thumbs up, I know that you have joined. Okay. Okay, people have joined. I see. Do you see the Menti presentation on the screen? Wonderful. I'm going to run very quick with this because we just need to know how to engage with citizens, and that's what I would like to share with you today also, apart from talking about what to do in that. I'm going to the next slide now. Few water bodies of your city. Just one name is enough by one person. It may be any city. If anyone asks me, I'm always saying Thaltej because it is just like a kilometer from my house.
Manipal Lake.
Okay, you have to write in the menti.com or yes, I can hear you. You can also use the chat box for these questions, no problem, okay? Okay, you see how beautiful the diagram. Do you see the results also? What you type? Wonderful.
No, we are not able to
You are
see.
not seeing the result. Why? Because I'm showing the result. Oh, that's very disturbing then. Okay, I think now you will see. Do you see the result? You should be able to see it.
It says
Name
you
the
have
water.
it
Pardon?
says you have already joined the presentation, but it's not moving ahead.
The Menti is not moving for you.
No, ma'am, it's not moving ahead.
Anyway, because it will only move when I move. You cannot move by yourself.
After submit, it doesn't go ahead. Ah, now it is going slowly. Yeah.
It will only go when I push that next button.
Acha, acha. Okay, okay.
Name the water body nearest to your place. Not all of them, okay? Just one. So more people live here near the Kukarahalli Kere. Okay, I get to learn from you before I really share something which I know. I don't think I know anything extraordinary. Okay, I'm going to the next one. How far do you live from that nearest water body which you just mentioned? Okay, we come to the last question of this round now. How often you go to that water body? So the result tells me so far that we are actually not frequenting to the water body, or we are not directly associated with the water body on a daily basis, because there are more people who go to that water body which they have mentioned near to their home, which should matter the most is once a month. And then there are people who do not go to that water body for whatever reason. I'm closing it for now, and then we move to the power presentation again. Please confirm when you see the presentation again. Okay. Is the presentation on your screen? Slideshow?
Yes, yes, madam.
Wonderful. Okay. So let's go. So as your initiative is called Jeeva Jala Jeeva Nadi, I picked a few things and I have a question for you. I'm assuming you have already done that homework, and I am unaware of it because I don't belong to that place. Is what happened in the last 200 years, but because what I read from the documents available on the public realm, from your public realm, not the overall document, that last 20 years, there has been serious urbanization and it has impacted. So I have a question for all of us. Are we still using that water body for domestic use, irrigation and industries, the very purpose for which the Purnaiha Nala was constructed? So it's a humanly constructed water system, which we have to accept. And then we are trying to talk about repurposing it today, and also talking about a sustainable urbanism. So these are some of the questions which we need to really dig through as a collective, what we really mean by that. And I'm assuming, as I said, you have already put up a timeline of how the value changed over time and how the value also changed the form of the water body. So it's like, whether form function follows function or function follows form, that's a different discussion. And it's also a chicken and egg situation, but definitely they are interlinked and they matter. And what happened in 200 years probably must have been expedited in last 20 years because we were following some kind of process that we call as urbanization. This is all from your document. Sorry. So now I look at, as was rightly mentioned, that sustainable development goals is part of the agenda. And I highlight one suggestion, because whenever we talk about water body, if we are not talking about the life in the water body, then we are incomplete, and it is actually still around the Anthropocene. Please understand, the very design of Purnaiha Nala was an anthropocentric approach. Industry, domestic use, agriculture. So now, if we want to talk about ecology, then we have to bring, or the water ecosystem, we have to bring the ecology at the forefront. And I see that as a challenge still with us as designers, planners, architects, politicians, developers, contractors, everyone. When we talk about water body, we are looking at water in isolation and not really water as an ecosystem. And I think that is also missed out in this whole background literature, which I could gather from you. Then the important part, which is very important here, where you actually mention in that partnership for goals is one of the SDGs, which is the least invested work, which has the highest transaction costs. And I'm so happy that you have it there. Because importantly, we have to acknowledge and accept that water management is really people management. You really don't have to do much about the water. And this is something harsh reality we suffer to accept and acknowledge. Okay, I'm assuming the slides are moving, right? Now, what was more interesting was looking at the way the background literature is posed there, and I looked through it, how different points of the Purnaiha Nala is placed there. And what was also more interesting, that University of Mysore has a fair share of the Nala. So you have a very interesting playground, I must say, to experiment something which you want to showcase to the entire city system. Here lies the crux. What is the perception and preference? As citizens, as design community, we ascribe to that water body. I give very simple example in the previous slide, the fact that we have to get the SDG on life underwater. And if it is not the first priority to regenerate, restore, preserve, conserve, whatever you want to do about the water body, we are still in the Anthropocene. And this is something which we need to talk about together, and how do we go about it. As I was mentioning in the beginning, that I just had my hands on working on Mysuru lakes, and thanks to Prajna Kumaraswamy at this point here. And I'm assuming she also played a role to bring me here. And as a student whom I am mentoring for her work, she gave me a peek into the Mysore traditional water systems and how Mysore is. So I'm learning from all of you, and I'm really grateful to all of you about that, particularly Prajna, who is teaching me what's there in Mysore. With that, I pose a simple design challenge to all of you. Can we all, as collective, work towards changing just the name Purnaiha Nala to Purnaiha Stream on policy documents, project documents, in order to change the approach to planning? This is a simple exercise I think we should take up. And I can give example from my own experience of Jaipur, where there is a lake which is called Jal Mahal Lake, whereas the actual name of lake was Mansagar Lake. It took many, many, many years even to really change the lake's name to Jal Mahal Lake. And now people don't even know that it is a Mansagar Lake built by Mansee. So the very fact a small building comes into a lake and it is called by that building is also Anthropocene. So we completely change the identity of the water body itself. So changing the identity of a stream to canal to nala is something which is a policy and people movement, not design intervention, by the way, but design is affected by it. That's the problem. So I want to come to the first part of the talk here and help or assist you in some way how you should organize as a collective, because I'm so motivated that here is a collective which wants to work on their city's plan. We are failing to have a collective actually in urban areas, because forming a collective is the biggest problem, not really working on the water system. To sustain a collective, and what should that collective do? How should that collective organize itself? I think that is a bigger problem or bigger challenge ahead of us than actually restoring the water body. So I propose to you one theoretical framework, because I'm a proponent of knowledge. I will be very honest on that. And I'm not a proponent of action by disguise, or for some reasons, I don't know, you may disagree with me, because in a country where we are so much proponent of action, if somebody goes and cleans and does something, it is more valued than somebody talks about it or writes about it. So being a proponent of knowledge, please bear with me today. I propose to you that as a collective, please organize your data and information and knowledge sharing as a platform. This is just one of the tools available in the world. And I'm sharing that because I work using this tool, and it is a tool which is actually very popular among the collectives. And it's called social ecological system approach. And there is a framework to it, that's social ecological system framework. And what is a social ecological system then? A social ecological system is an ecological system intricately linked with and affected by the social system within which it is located, which actually in simple words mean we manufacture ecology to large extent based on our needs, based on our use, misuse, abuse, whatever may be that extent. Now, how to use this concept into a framework and why it is required? As a collective, when you have multidisciplinarity, transdisciplinarity, gender inclusivity, generation inclusivity, people come with different ideas and thoughts. How are you going to put it in one place? It's like a library. So we have to, as a collective, create a library of information that can be as much transparent as possible, and it can flow between the stakeholders. That should be our objective as a collective. And that's why I'm presenting this to you. And I'm not going to present what you should do in design, but how to really bring people together and work together in a shared knowledge platform. So this is how it looks diagrammatically, but I'm going to decode it for you and tell you how one should be using it as a collective. It's a conceptual framework. It's a methodological framework. Many people can work together. The beauty of this framework is that now when we see the scientific output of people using this framework is that it has many, many authors working together. It is rarely actually used by scholars in a solo format. It's a collective format. So that is where how you can organize your information. I'm going to move my mouse here. So you can talk about your own resource system, then the governance system, then what you want from it, and who are going to be involved. I'm going to make it a little bit more complicated here. This is something which comes with the framework as a package. So how and what are the things required to know a system in depth from 360 degree, if not complete 360, at least 180 degrees? Because the problem which I have also faced as a design student for a long, long time is that we have a very linear way of looking at things. We have to unlearn and relearn how to look at complex systems, how to look at people, water, ecology together. And I was very happy to see in the title of your project itself, it is at the intersection of water and society. So do not go into the details of the words because I'm going to decode it for you further. Now, I try to do it for Mysore water systems and make it a little bit more, contextualize it, I will say. So here you see the water system here. Then what value do society aspire from it, and what is the designers collective or the people's collective aspire from it? This is extremely crucial because what value you ascribe to it today. And I go back to that diagram which is there on the homepage of MSA, where you have the campaign. That diagram is very powerful, and it also tells the value you want to put on that water body. Then who are the people who are going to be involved? As a citizen collective, with whom you are going to negotiate, discuss, at what level, what content, that is important. What are the tools you have in hand, including activism as a tool, by the way? What are the policies that supports doing it? What are the laws? The very fact that a water body became a nala, we have to accept that the land use changed. From a water body, it changed into a wasteland and probably to an infrastructure. So we have to understand the mechanisms that can be used as a tool to negotiate with not only government, but also with the people with whom you are going to engage as a fraternity or as a collective. And where is it set up? Basically, overall context. Then you are going to write your own details. So contextualizing means deciding an entry point, which I'm suggesting you to use value proposition, because that's a good entry point. What do you want from it? Now that you say that it is a nala, it's in bad shape, how would you like to repurpose it? What is your imagination of repurposing? For what use? Because if it is not going to be used for irrigation, not going to be used for domestic purpose, not going to be used for industrial purpose, then what is the use? We have to be explicit about the use. Is it only recreation? Is it the ecology that you wish to revive? This is something which has to be very clear upfront and conveying it to the, because as a collective, you become the bridge or the conduit between the government and the people. So it has to be clear that this is what we aspire from it. And accordingly, actually, I have written many points here for Mysore. So I can share this slide and PPT for you so that you can organize. And this also means that it is not a job of one person. You will have people from technology, from limnology, from hydrology, from social science, from planning background, from architecture background, from management background, from governance background, who all can bring their little information of that particular area where you want to work on and put it together, and actually it can be a good game to play together. What's there? What is that we have all of us together? I think one of the important thing which we have to learn, and I am learning it hard way as I drift away from architecture planning, that there is much more than design and planning in every project. Most of the projects which are commons project, which are common pool project, which are public project, design is merely the end product to operationalize what has been already decided by the society, where collectives, government, people play a huge role, because people are part of the collective and people are part of the government. So this is where we need to accept different specializations, multidisciplinarity, and let everyone bring. So you can actually make your own kit of what information are required and who are the specializations required in this. So you can build that. Please go back to your Mentee. We play some things again to develop your own social ecological system for the project which you are working on. I go back to Mentee again. The same Mentee. Let me know if you see the Mentee. And you have the question, write the characteristics that makes a water body in your ideas. Some words will pop up, I hope. I'm not seeing any word popping up. Are people writing? Do you see it?
Mentee is not visible actually.
Mentee is not
Your
visible.
presentation only is visible.
Okay, so you may go back to, okay, I can see some people are able to see it. I will reshare then. Wait, just give me a moment. Let me reshare the Mentee. Okay. But you have it on your screen, huh? I think I have to change the screen for me. Do you see it now? No, not yet. I think you should be able to see it now.
No, ma'am. Now
Yeah, now it is visible. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So some people could manage to see it. So this is something, the value proposition I'm talking about. So as a collective, you have to come up with some value proposition that this is what we would like to see in the water system. And accordingly, everything will be framed around, what to do for calmness, for example, to have interactive spaces. Then the design will evolve accordingly. And it is not that only designers are sitting in this platform, I'm assuming, but let's say that you are doing this game with people, with government. And then you will see where do we come together and what all things can be prioritized. I go to the next question. Please write just one word. That is more than enough, because we just want to learn how we can engage, Write the social cultural value you consider in that water body. I hope you enjoy this way of doing things, because I thought it can be a nice way. And I will share the results with you, Champa and Vikram. Huh? So later on, you can use it. Okay. Okay, we go to the next. We can keep playing. Otherwise, it's really fun to do these kind of things. But I see around half the people have responded, which is good enough. No problem. Because we are doing in a fast track, it will take more time when we have more time to really play it on the ground. What ecological value will you consider? For me personally, no water body is water body if there is no fish playing in it. I just give my value to it. But when you look at most of the water documents, fish has hardly any presence in those documents. So any riverfront development, lakefront development, canal front development, if it is not starting with the fish, there is a problem. The project itself is Anthropocene. Just to give you a clue. So biodiversity, but biodiversity, when we use the word, it is very loose in the sense that it includes everything, but then it does not include everything. So planting exotic trees is also considered as biodiversity. Planting grass is also considered so everything green is not biodiversity. But pull out any DPR project in the country at this moment in time, you will not find a project telling that if I clean this lake or this stretch of the river, you will have such population of fish or such population of indigenous fishes, such varieties of indigenous fishes. Unless and until this change in the document is coming, just the way I said, change the name of the Nala to stream. Unless and until that is coming, actually we are not thinking in that direction then. We're just doing the panacea. We're just repeating what's done everywhere. Okay, I go to the next one. I see people are enjoying doing this interactive session. So economic value. It's just to give you a glimpse of how we can do these things, when we are collective. So actually, I prepared my talk today more as how can I assist you as a collective? Okay, we like chapati by the water body. That's good. Because we are a minority fraternity sitting here today, oh, that's good to see that more than 60 people are here. We are, I will say, more awakened people. We can express it better. But imagine doing this across populace. What kind of feedback will you get? This can be a very simple way. And then how can you arrive to something to prioritize? That you have a good, when we talk about sustainability, we actually talk about all of them, so social, ecological, economic, of course, political sustainability, which is maneuvering everything, Okay, we go to the next one. Are you dependent on that water body directly? Now that you have ascribed the value. This is from that framework which I showed to you, how you can start utilizing that framework. If you are not dependent, is it altruism? Is it something you feel for intrinsic value for your children, for future generation? Or is it because your profession calls you to engage with such kind of thing? This is very important. This is something philosophical, but it is important as why I must engage. I mean, I can give very simple example while you are writing this question, or maybe next one probably. I was working on a Japanese grant project on Ajmer Lake, and people of Ajmer actually had invited me to write proposal. I won the proposal, and people then asked me, why don't you engage with us doing campaign, walk with us, do all kinds of dharna, do the paperwork and all. I said, I am not affected by that lake. And I'm here as a scholar. I produce science out of it. I cannot engage with you on a daily basis. So you have to understand the delineation, which I'll come in the next part of my presentation also, is extremely important. If you are dependent, your dynamic relationship with that water body will be very different than you are independent of it. And that's why we had asked a simple question in the beginning, how often do you visit? What is your relationship with it? Right, the physical health of the water body that you had mentioned in the beginning, or Purnaiha Nala, whichever you're talking about. So eventually you will play with one water body. So, okay, I'm considering as 0 at this moment. We could now go back to our presentation. Okay, I go back to the presentation and move to the second slide part of it. And please confirm if you see my second part, collective action. If someone can just give a thumbs up. Is the slide changed? No, not changed. Okay, so I reshare. Okay, this is getting tricky because the slides are not changing by themselves. No problem. I assume the slide has changed. Okay, so when we talk about working together, we have to know how do we work together? What should we work on? How can we define our roles? This is extremely important because much of the environmental campaigns are short-lived. We have to accept it and learn how can we make it long-lived. And when we look for the long term or sustenance of a collective, we have to actually fall back on the dependence and go back to the rural setups, and we actually learn from them because they are directly dependent and they are using and managing it on a daily basis. So as I said in the first part also, people are at the center of it. Because people form collectives, people are part of the government. So individuals make institutions. But at the same time, being individuals, we are also in the constant state of dilemma and denial. And what are those? And can we overcome them as a collective? And we go back to microeconomic theories about it, which is well-established theory. None of them are unknown to most of us who work with commons. We know that we have overexploited, tragedy of the commons. We also know that we have problem in coming together and doing something, and this is especially more relevant in urban setup. Especially, I have also experienced myself working on Thaltej Lake for many years when I was young, and I was a proponent of action that kuch to karna hai jeevan mein. Not proponent of knowledge that time because I had this design disease in me. I realized it is extremely difficult to bring people together, especially when we have different ideas, different thoughts, different prerogatives, different preferences and perceptions of life, of surrounding, of society. Then we also fall back into that very important situation, which is prisoner's dilemma. What is that? If I change or do something, things will not change. Others are not doing. Why should I waste time? मेरे करने से संसार नहीं बदलेगा. This is something which we all practice in everyday life. But when we talk about in a collective, and there are optimistic theories as well, which is the collective action theory or self-governing theory, self-organization, where the literature on common pool resource come. We accept that change has to be from within, and that is why we go and study those collectives which have sustained for centuries. When we talk about traditional water management systems, we are not talking about the water body itself. We are also talking about the culture, the care, the management practices, how citizens or communities across generations have really taken care of it. So even if we want to embrace that for the urban setting, that's the only way. So this is also a moment I must congratulate all of you at Mysuru that you have actually started and trying to do something out of it. We don't know the outcomes yet, but you are trying. So please strengthen the community work. Please strengthen how you're going to work together, how you're going to organize the data so that you can sustain this movement, because this deliberation, this lobbying is the only way to bring a change. Otherwise, business as usual is already happening. So we need to also look at what is there from literature that helps us. How can we sustain as a collective? So this is something from the design principles of working together or self-organizing, I must say. So if you have formed a collective of collectives, which I could gather from the names which are there in the previous slide as it was there, IUDI Karnataka, Mysore School of Architecture, Water Forum Mysuru, and Aranya Outreach. And I'm sure there are more and more students, youth, and generational also people. What can we do? As I was showing the social ecological system framework and talking about multidisciplinarity, I would like to encourage you that as a collective, defining your roles as what can I bring into this platform? How can I bring it? How much can I do? Is extremely important. What is my limitation in this collective? It will be extremely important. And also being very explicit about what is the give and take for my contribution in this collective. Because much of the literature tells us that the campaigns evaporate because the clarity on what do I get and how do I contribute and how do I get acknowledgement, because acknowledgement is altruism. It's part of the benefit. You give time, you give money, is part of the cost. That has to be very clearly discussed and laid out between the partners. And then what is the arrangement you have that you can accommodate more people, that you can negotiate with the government, that you can communicate with the local bodies, local citizens? What are the tools you are going to use between each other? How are those tools going to be transcribed? How are the tools going to be used by each other? And how can you bring them together? Who is going to be taking care of how do we work as a collective? Monitoring, not only of the resource, but also how do you work as collective, how citizens' behavior is changing. So this is all about how you have to actually organize your information and data. How are the government policies changing, shaping, reshaping, destroying, developing, whatever words you can use it? There has to be a logbook. It's like as a collective, you have to build your own library of the commons of that water system. What kind of terms and conditions you are setting up between yourselves for leaving the collective, or for even bringing more people into the collective? How are you planning to resolve conflicts? Again, from literature, we learn much of the collectives evaporate when difference of opinions come in, and difference of opinions may arrive because of the difference of background. It may be educational background, cultural background, understanding background. So we may have a lot of knowledge, but we may not have a common ground to put that knowledge together. So we need to place something like conflict resolution mechanism in place, and also having a clear mandate with the local authority and the local people as right to organize. I will share an example from my own lived experience, that getting a recognition from the society, especially the government and the local people around whom with you are working, that this collective exists, is extremely important, not only to keep motivated, but also to establish a transparent system of communication. This is extremely important. The nested enterprise is part of the social ecological system. I will escape it today. Now, what those theoretical things mean? Who are involved and who are allowed to be part of the collective? What are the time, place, and technology people are going to bring into that collective? Who is going to contribute their resource into the resource system? So your own time, money, or whatever you want to give. How are you going to monitor? Are you going to have a digital system? Are you going to have something like this? Or what are the timelines? How are you going to meet? What are the risks you are taking into consideration? I'm not talking about managing the water body. I'm talking about managing the own collective, because managing collective itself is managing the water body. Water body will not require much technological changes. I will be very honest and brutally honest on this. How to resolve the conflicts over maintenance and use and running the system, your own collective system. How to really accommodate, modify, all of the above. This looks like this as a picture. I'm skipping it for now, because when you form a collective, and I'm sure you're already working on, some people are working on motivation, some people were working on political level, some people are working on financing, some people are working on coordination, monitoring, conflict resolution, and how are you going to draw things to show the aspiration. This is just a diagram from one case study of a project, which is Ajmer, by the way, of my research. Now, when you are doing a collective, you have to be also coming to and arriving to a situation of scenarios. What happens when we work? How long are we going to work together? Do we have a final agenda, that what do we want to see from this water body? You will probably, you are already uh, experiencing this scenario. And the scenario is very simple 2x2 matrix, which I'm presenting, but it can be complex also, which I will present in the next slide. But we can again skip that, but let us keep it very simple. You work hard, you get low result. You work less, not you, but the collective invests smartly and less, but gets very high yield or good ecology, let's say. Ideal will be that we work smartly and small, and we get higher results. And that is extremely possible to in today's time, especially the kind of knowledge we carry, and also the technologies we have, and the system is in place. So actually, we need to go back to the basics or high school thing. There are also ways that you really do more and you get less. And utopia is that you do very much and you get the best option. These are the things it is important as a team to discuss, that what exactly, where do we want to reach in this collective movement. It is extremely important to set the goal, because that goal has to be also in words beyond the diagrams and the designs. Now, if you look at that the 2x2 matrix and come to it, you also get a complex scenario, because we, as a policy or as a collective, in both situations, we have a normative way of looking at things. We want an ideal state. For example, as I gave you the challenge that Purnaiha Nala should return back to stream, I just called it on paper, but it is also possible in real time on the ground. So that's an ideal state we always establish, and every policy has an ideal state scenario. But there is also a working state which we need to understand and which we need to accept, and that's the 2x2 matrix which we have to understand. That we put in some effort, whether it is government or a collective. Government itself is a collective in a very formal setup, and we are an informal setup of collective. The actions or the activities may improve or may deteriorate. We have to be prepared for the scenarios. So that is why the homework or the background work is done more, and we call it research, which is the weakest part in our system in India, because we are proponents of action in this country. We do not want people to write and talk. We want people to go and do things. Now, when we do such things and we have to understand the outcome, as I was explaining in a graph, let us see in a picture. Who does what in what capacity? That is the governance of it. Then we talk about what do we want to sustain and how much do we want to sustain and how long do we want to sustain. Because please understand one thing, in urban scenario, the birth of a water body means there is a death of that water body. And the whole effort in the last 100 years in India has been towards the death of the water body, because the death of the water body means the birth of a land. And land has a valuation much higher than the water body itself, because we consider water body as a land on which there is water. And that's the worst definition we have for water body. So this is something which we have to accept and see how do we frame our outcome. And let's see how do we actually do that in real time. I will skip this and take it at the end. What do we actually do as design, as planning, as politics? Here are two pictures on the top, which is our ideal scenario, a hinterland or a rural water system where everything is thriving, complex system, flowing easily, and blah, blah, blah. Then we have something which we have put on a pedestal, and a serious problem in that putting that on a pedestal is the waterfront rhetoric of Varanasi. I am sure every designer, every architect, every planner of this country aspires a waterfront like Varanasi without understanding the hydrology, the flow of the water, and the organic growth of the place called Varanasi. When we use this picturesque canvas, we are already failing our water bodies, because we didn't understand the very fact that Varanasi built its retention wall to escape from Ma Ganga's atrocities, and the Varanasi for centuries survived with its lakes, ponds, and tanks, not from river Ganga for domestic irrigation. Now it probably industrial, they are drawing groundwater. So we have to understand that this is something we put as a picture postcard, as a one-time act, which is something has evolved over centuries, and to protect from the might of the river. Now, if we take that picture and bring it to our city, and of course in a modern design, this is what happens, at which I'm showing at the back, at the bottom picture. This is how lake front, river front. Look at any riverfront project, and Ahmedabad riverfront, the model riverfront of the country, it shows this kind of picture. Singapore, Hong Kong, on the riverfront, high-rise towers, water body. There's no mention of fish. There's no mention of ecology. There's no mention of biodiversity. So somewhere we are actually trapped between the rural hinterland and the Varanasi model of waterfront. And we bring a new language to the Varanasi waterfront, to be honest, because that is what we can do. So we need to work as a collective to change the way we conceptualize and contextualize water body. I'm giving a very simple example here. You will look at every designer, every lake man, pond woman, lake woman, everybody in this country who call themselves like that, they show this kind of picture. जैसा एक टेली एड आता था, पहले मैं बहुत मोटा होता था, अब मैंने ये दवाई खाई तो मैं दुबला हो गया. Exactly this way they do it for water bodies. Earlier it was in bad shape like this, the top one, and now we have done it in a good shape like the bottom. Let me tell you the ecological value of the top photo and the bottom photo. Probably the ecological value of top photo is better than the bottom photo. This is something, is change of narrative. We have to accept water bodies as dry. What we have to work on is not litter them, not manipulate their edges, not work on them. Wait for the water body. Let it remain dry for some time and then let it fill when the monsoon comes. We are in a hurry, and in that process, because when we started water supply into the city, we forgot to do the drainage for a long time, and then water bodies became the natural recipient of wastewater. And now we are talking about treating the wastewater and making it look beautiful. And that narrative has to change. And this is the classic example, which is from Ahmedabad. You know, पहले मैं बहुत ब्लैक एंड व्हाइट फोटो हुआ करता था, बाद में मैंने कलर फोटो बना लिया और मैंने एक. So the whole idea of putting society into order is translated into putting ecology into order. You know, and this is where designers play a very crucial role. How do we shape the narrative? How do we politicize the science of it? How do we scientize the politics of it? If somebody dreams of having an island, I received many projects in the past when Netaji will come and they will say, we want to have an island, we want to have a pathway. My answer was very simple. आपको तो सब मालूम है, करना है तो किसी इंजीनियर से करवा लीजिए. The point I'm trying to say is that we have our own aspiration, own idea of water body. As a collective, your bigger responsibility is not to change the water body, but to change the perception of water body, how society should look at it, what should be there. And those components will come from your multidisciplinarity team as a collective. And I think underlying this theme or changing the concept and the context lies how do we value or how we assign valuation or monetize the system, the water system. And a very simple example I give here from the water literature, by the way, major efforts in the water scholarship goes on how to provide water to the poor. That is 99% of studies on water distribution is how to provide water to the poor. Not even 1% study is done on how to cut short the water extravaganza of the rich. This is a very simple example. Because the fact urban areas receive more water, they deprive rural areas from getting the water which they deserve, because they are also the food producers. So this is also not only urban rural, but it also goes rich poor within the urban areas. It also goes human versus other species, and so on and so forth. And it is all about how do we value that water body? For whom do we value? And this is something which you have to come together and decide. Please work on the science and the conscience of it. When you take Ahmedabad example as a model to build 150 riverfronts in the country, even the canals and nalas are getting riverfront done. I think it is important for us to learn what we should not be doing. Every case study is not necessarily a good case study. Every case study has something good. Every case study has something not so good. So I think we need to learn how, when we change the value of a water body, we also change the identity of that water body. The 20 kilometer of Ahmedabad riverfront has completely sabotaged the identity of 370 kilometers of riverfront, because Ahmedabad riverfront is called Sabarmati riverfront. You Google Sabarmati and Sabarmati riverfront is on the top 10 pages of Google search. The very river identity is completely lost. So I think as a collective, you have to reclaim the identity of the water body more than the details of that water body. Giving example again, the Sursagar Baroda. This is done by, look at the drawing of an urban designer, sect urban designer. Look at the drawing and what goes beyond this design drawing. How do we actually rip apart a water body and take away almost 25% of the water body? Please understand, in last 100 years, every water body development has resulted in reduction of the land of the water body by 10 to 15%. In that process, we have lost nearly 50% of the water bodies in the urban settings, and the remaining 50% are remaining 50% of the size. And this is a classic example of Sursagar Lake, how the lake is shrunk into a little pool, you know, and cutting more than 100 trees of more than 500 years old. And not to talk about the animals there, because I think people get very angry about it. They are very happy with that thing. I come with some case studies of how collectives have really changed or reshaped, because you talk about repurposing and reshaping and reclaiming, reimagining. And I will share some examples which I have lived, not that I have designed, but I have lived those examples. And I'm very happy to share these examples. This was just from my backyard, I must say. The Bentham Line of Rotterdam. This is a classic example how citizens collective like you can come together and negotiate with the local government to get funding under the climate initiative, get funding under the water harvesting or water conservation, and create a public space. A very no-go area is now one of the go-go area in Rotterdam. You can just look at it, how the whole area used to be very, I will say, really be in bad shape, and also used to get water, filled in the monsoon. They created a water harvesting structure, which is also the plaza here. A very simple example, but let me tell you, it took 3 to 4 years for the citizen movements to negotiate the project, and it barely took 3 to 4 months to build the project. So this is where we need to understand that we have to invest on people, whether the people is local citizen, whether the people is the collective itself, or whether the people is the institution or the government body. And this is where the crux lies, and this is where we actually fail most of the collective movements. I give another example from Rotterdam, again my lived experience in my second term in Rotterdam. This is the lake of Rotterdam, and it is a built structure from the lagoon, of course, in there. But what is important is every citizen of the city is aware that this is the water we drink. Therefore, and it is informed in various ways. I remember in my 5 years of stay, there was a survey which came from the local municipality about the water body. About the building also came, but today we are not talking building, for the building repair, which was the 70 years old building where I was living. So the local government is informing the citizens about what's going on in the water body. So can a collective like yours take that responsibility, or get yourself delegated that responsibility, or partner with the local body to take that responsibility to inform people what is the use of this water body and how it can be used? I'm not getting into the details of design, but I'm just picking some of the learning which I have actually lived in these examples. This is from Tempe Lake, Arizona, a river which is dammed from two sides to make the lake, and the city of Tempe is built for that lake. Actually, the lake was built first, so basically dammed water river, and then the habitation is built around it, which is a typical scenario in many places around the world. But what I learned from here is the information system. You can get detail of every molecule of Tempe Lake in that area, because it is a humanly constructed water system. Every fish got into the lake, every fish born into the lake. I don't know what kind of GIS system, what kind of sophisticated system they have. It's a dynamic, constant information where you can walk in and find out what's going on. Every 0.1 degree rise in the water body, you can go there and you can find it about it. Every fish born, you can find information about it. Every tree cut, you can find information about it. Every fish die, you can find information. I think we are missing this in the country. I remember Niti Aayog telling that we have more data crisis than water crisis, and I so much agree with that, because we have so much of data, but it has not come together at one place. And citizens collective like yours have a major role in bringing the information and data together. And that is also where I propose to you the social ecological system framework. Because if you have data and information, you also need to know how to put them together. And this is, by the way, something which all of you know, Ian McHarg, and you know that the ontology that Ian McHarg built eventually became the base of GIS. And this is something they built, an ontology of Tempe Town Lake. And that was something very fascinating for me. I bring another example as a student of Nobel laureate Elinor Ostrom. I lived in Bloomington for some time. And what was very interesting was the nature. The university was in the nature, or nature was in the university, you cannot identify. But what you can identify is that as a university person, you are engaging in maintaining that ecology. So I learned community engagement is so crucial to maintain such kind of ecology. Can we build some kind of template for it? They have a template for it. They have some, some list of plants, list of fishes, everything is available there. You go and you can observe, you can play with it, children can play with it. There are teachers who are taking children around. I think something like this engaging, which we have to design or build, we have to really think as a collective. And these are the things only collectives can do. Government has no time to do these things, and government most of the time is not interested. But collectives can only work when governments can help doing it. They have to financially help us. And that's where the right to recognition, if you remember, I showed in the collective action, is extremely crucial. I give another example of Kyoto. As a visiting scholar with the Ministry of Education there for a year, the Kamogawa River in Kyoto, you may recall that Varanasi River has been called as a sister project of the Kamogawa River. But what is important to learn here in Kyoto example is it's all the wastewater of Kyoto gets into the river, but at the downstream end of the river, you find fresh water, as fresh as drinkable. So there is some technology, of course, involved in the redesigning or reimagining the river. But at the same time, we have to understand nobody is throwing even a cigarette butt into that river. So it is to that extent the social cultural behavior matters. Discipline matters. And again, it is, of course, backed by the information. People are informed about it. People care about it. In Japan, in Kyoto especially, where I lived, every Sunday, every neighborhood would go out and clean their neighborhood for some time and have their breakfast together. That's a culture. We have to, as a collective, if we can build that culture, imagine your 25 kilometers of river and you have 25 sub-collectives, and they do this for 1 kilometer every Sunday. You have a community build of cities. So see, I may be very altruistic, but unless and until we imagine these things, we dream these things, we cannot materialize these things. And this was there in the past in our culture. So I'm not talking something which was never there in our culture. I bring an example of Shanghai Houghton Park. I'm sure you all are aware of it when we study waterscapes. But what is important for me to pick as a learning from here, that de-development around the world is already knocking the door. So is design, architecture, planning still riding the boat of development, or riding the car or bus or flight, whatever, of development, or has it already started teaching de-development? I'm very fond of de-development. I love to teach de-development, and I show the various ways of de-development. This is an example of de-development, but it is also an example how large projects are centralized, are going to remain centralized project, and small projects have to be collective projects. This is where government and collectives have to have some kind of negotiation and understanding. Government cannot do everything, same collectives cannot do everything. But in China, you have more discipline because there's enough money and power put into it, but at the same time, there is also control and care by the citizens. control over citizens and care by the citizens. I have lived it and experienced it. This is another example from my students' work and also my experienced place. The artificial eco wetland, which is now we call as sponge cities around the world. One of the early examples of sponge city implemented came from, of course, China as a concept also, but China has experimented it at many places. This is in Kunming. The whole city's wastewater comes into this wetland called Dianchi Lake, which is a Ramsar site, by the way, and they are repurposing the water. And there you can see floating agriculture, you can see floating work, you can see water agriculture, aquatic agriculture happening. So it's also a classic example of de-development, a very highly sophisticated nature-based solution with AI put in for monitoring every detail of the water body. So these are the things we have to aspire for, but of course come up with some kind of example. And I think this is the favorite example from urban design when we talk about junction stream. The highway turned into stream, and often the study starts from that the highway is turned into stream, whereas actually it was a stream turned into highway. Now it has been reclaimed into stream. So this is kind of a narrative which we build. But again, it's a centralized project, high power, but we also know the story behind it, that it was a citizens movement that actually lobbied for the government to bring up this kind of serious, I will say, reshaping or redesigning or redeveloping. Personally, I love the word de-development, to be honest. But this is, I think, a classic example urban design always uses. I would only request to change the narrative to start from its origin, not from in between. This is a very simple example I bring again, the only example from India where I actually worked with a citizens collective, and that's why I'm sharing this. Just one example, and it's also the last case study. When Rockefeller Foundation had some cities to work on rejuvenating water bodies in the country, I took up a project with Taru, and we worked on forming the citizens collective in that little peri-urban lake. And not only this lake, but also many lakes, and we eventually got it certified as a collective from the local body, which is Indore Municipal Corporation. So then Indore Municipal Corporation had some kind of negotiation and arrangement of fund sharing, responsibility sharing, monitoring sharing, and of course, a handbook was created. So I am giving all these examples from the very idea that if you have already formed the citizen collective, it is now a good time to claim that stewardship. And also, I will say, negotiate for more institutional support. And then only you will see some outcomes which you are anticipating. That brings me to my last two slides, and it's more of a, I will say, very simple generic ideas, because we have taken a track from, from conservation to development, and we have to go back. I don't know how that will happen, and the theory or scholarship is de-development. But I think what is required here is there, of course, we need more science, because science is still not so respected in our country or in our system. Even architecture planning itself is not so research oriented, and it has to be highly research oriented. But more importantly, can we bring conscience? Can designers really stop doing those non-ecological projects? That is conscience for me. I have not done a single waterfront, lakefront development project in the country, and I'm very proud of it. It's not that I didn't get it. I did get it as a lake specialist in my, peak time. I chose not to do it. And this is where, or if you can choose to do it, please do it in the ecological way. And I strongly believe academics has to play the activist role or activism. And this is where, because the change of narrative, change of perception, change of preference will only come from education, and teachers really have that responsibility. And I hope we start teaching. I still go door to door around the country in architecture planning schools. Please teach water bodies. Water bodies is not waterfront development. We need to change this narrative. And as I have been saying again and again, please do not practice without learning. Please learn about it before doing, but learning is only possible when architecture planning schools start at least one credit elective course on water bodies. not on waterfront development, because waterfront development is a land development project and a water grabbing project, not a water development project. That brings me to the last slide here. As a collective, what we can do, we need to establish our communication system. We need to establish our collective data system. I gave you example. One of the ways is social ecological system framework. We need to establish a system how the information can flow through the collective between the government and the people and within the collective itself. We have the biggest task as a collective to change the perception and preference of people of the water body. What is a water body? How it should be? The very simple reason that we need to have the SDG of life underwater is a good step further. And definitely, I am very reluctant usually to show case studies. I still showed some case studies today, but with my specific learning, because all the case studies have serious problems, but I focused on the citizens collective today to show the learning, but not copying, definitely not copying Varanasi as a waterfront development, and not copying any of these Hong Kong, Singapore, Boston, or whatever it is, Rotterdam for that matter, is something which as a collective, which we can really go across the country as an urban design collective, I will say, not only IUDI or Mysore collective, but as an urban design pedagogy, if we can really stop telling that this is the right way to do it and there are no other ways, I think we are doing good job as a collective. That actually brings me to invite you to our water conversation series. We, as W4W Foundation, we are running this conversation series now, making us the longest water conversation series in the world, to be honest, more than 400 sessions. And in that, we are running a riverscape series where we are talking about water systems. We are taking rivers and diagnosing it. We have so far done in the first time we did 11 series. Now we are 6 series in this, where we took up Ahmedabad riverfront, Baroda riverfront, Jammu riverfront, Pune riverfront, and I invite you to take Mysore riverfront. And leave you with this simple challenge, which I gave you in the beginning. Please change Purnia from Nala to stream on paper. I think planning will change by itself. Let me stop here.
I think I'm still digesting your the information that you gave out.
I didn't give anything about design.
No, no, no. I think that is what I mentioned it at the beginning itself. I think we as architects and designers, we need to stop thinking about design as of now. I think that's where the problem has started in the entire uh, universe, you can say it. Yes. I think if we have questions, so you may please. Supreet, you have a question? Yes.
Okay, there is a question from Shrikant. Are these questions city specific? You mean the mentee? It was for your city and it was just a tool to tell you how to engage with each other in chat. Yeah. Where can we read more about these case studies? Okay, Chinmay Shahi. Oh, I'm specifically interested in the Tempe one. So you can actually find out about the Tempe Lake or maybe go as a research fellow. I was a Fulbright professor at Tempe. So Tempe is very well studied and you can find scientific articles about it, to be honest. Today, I took a simple version of it because I wanted to pick only one learning from each case studies and also to give you a palette of case studies where you can learn from. We should not promote the Tempe Lake as a water system. But what we can learn from is how to monitor a water system from Tempe Lake. They have a huge, studio, and it is open all the time. You walk in, it's full of screens. You can go and play with it. It is interactive. You want to know about the fish. You want to know about the water temperature. You want to know about the wavelength. You can go and play. There are, of course, professors and scientists there. That's a in-person experience, but it is a very well-studied case study because Tempe is not a preferred option. It's on the Salt River. It is talking so much of water that on the downstream, you don't get much water. But I showed the example for information system. I think Sukhpreet still has a hand.
Yes. I now made myself audible. So anyway, what I wanted to, it was a lovely presentation. I really liked the interaction part of it. But what I want to mention here is, I mean, you kept saying that on paper we should make the Nala the stream, right? I mean, that
Hmm.
is one thing you emphasized right from the beginning to
Yes,
the
yes,
end of the presentation, and
yes,
I
yes.
would like to voice here that this is not a stream.
Hmm.
Unlike a stream where water is flowing all the time, this is
Okay,
actually a man-made Nala. So it
okay.
was. It's a system. It's a system which
Canal.
most
It
of
was
South
a canal.
India has. Yes, it is. It's a Rajakalaway. It's actually a Rajakalaway. So it was meant to, take water when it overflows from one water body to a second water body, and that was a 25-kilometer long Rajakalaway, which was built back about 150 years. It's like the history. You've read about it from the literature
Yes.
that you've come across. So basically, we cannot call it a stream because, like I mentioned earlier, it's not a
What was the
channel.
original name then? What was
It's
the
Purnia
original name? The
Nale.
Nala.
It's called the Purnia Nale itself.
Okay. When it was made, it was already called Nala.
Yes, yes. It's called
Because
the Purnia.
we have to change the perception of how we define Nala.
Yeah. So you see, if it is okay, again, it's a language problem here,
Yes.
maybe. So yeah. So in Kannada, Nale does mean it doesn't necessarily mean a stream
Bad Nala.
a channel which carries dirty water. So that's
Okay.
why I could also say maybe we could use the term Rajakalaway. So a Rajakalaway was a channel. They were meant to be channels which were connecting water bodies. So in this case, this particular Rajakalaway, which is also known as Purna Nale, was actually connecting three or four water bodies, and the last one was Kukrahalli Kere.
Hmm. So it's a
So
connecting channel. It's a
it is
connecting channel.
very
Of
true,
course.
very true. So as I mean, you were giving example. I understand. You are from Ahmedabad. So like Sabarmati River on both sides used to have a number of wetlands, and each wetland was connected to other, and they were connected through channels, right? I mean,
Hmm.
I have lived in Ahmedabad for a couple of years, so I kind of know this history to it. And the water would eventually come back to Sabarmati River, but in this case, it wasn't river and water wetland connection. It was just connection from one wetland to another wetland. And this is a system which is followed in most of South India because an overflow, it's like
Yeah.
the downstream lakes would actually get water from an upstream lake. So also what has been done here very ingeniously is that they use the ridge line, the ridge line, and they actually connected multiple wetlands using the ridge line elevation or whatever you call it. So now, so considering all that, we cannot necessarily, so just clarifying that one particular point that you
That's
were.
nice. Thank you. Yeah. But
So
the point I was trying to make is what you language matters. Let me be very
yes,
honest.
yes, very true, very true. So that's why
What you call and how you imagine. Let me just give a very brutal example here. When you say the word dog and kutta, they make a huge difference. It's
true,
just a
true, true,
language difference.
true,
So
true.
just giving an example, and that's where I think the Nala word is also used by in the British archives. We can see that Nalla, in different parts of the country, it's used different. I think the point I was trying to make is when we use a DPR document as lake development report or
Mm-hmm.
detailed project report is lake development. The moment you will change it into lake conservation project, everything will. Likewise, if you start calling a Nala not a Nala because we have certain imagination of Nala in the country.
True.
Maybe its original name, whatever. I mean, may not be
Mm-hmm.
stream, but it will completely change our perception and look out for it.
Sure,
You know,
sure. Understand. I get your point. Get that
very simply,
terminology is
Jal
extremely
Mahal,
important.
Jal Mahal and Mansagar.
Yeah.
There was so much money put into making Jal Mahal, restoring Jal Mahal as an architectural monument. Not even half the money was put into restoring the water body, which is Mansagar, which is 700 times more than the water, than the little structure. So this is where the whole perception changes. So that's
Very
the
true.
point I was trying to make. And
Yeah.
I think I use this example very often for development and conservation. If all the river projects were not riverfront development vis-a-vis river conservation project, you will immediately have to have an hydrologist, limnologist, ichthyologist, ornithologist. But when you talk about riverfront development, you don't have them. There was no ichthyologist, ornithologist in Ahmedabad riverfront project. And let me tell you, 2000, I think Prasanna was here in Ahmedabad that time as my immediate junior. 2000, Ahmedabad was flooding, all the lakes were full, all the city was full, and the river was dry. So it's also information, So river was not connected with these water bodies, and
Very
also
true.
stuff was done by development also. So
Yeah.
somewhere when we do a development around the water body, because that's how we imagine water body, we also actually cage the water body to not receive water from the surrounding. That is the biggest problem in water developments.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, true. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Also, I mean, I also wanted to ask you. I also wanted to say one more thing here. I mean, um the Sabarmati River example that you were giving, it's a river, and then you don't understand the ecology or the other aspects of the river, and then you actually develop this riverfront that you're mentioning. So very truly, people were not kept into consideration. Now, this Purnaiha Nale or this Rajik Holloway that we're talking about is already a man-made structure. Okay, and the
Hmm.
purpose of the man-made structure was to, like I said, connect wetlands. Now, how do we then enable people to, so in this case, the question of the question of Sabarmati is not coming in here,
Of course.
because this is a more already a human made structure. So how do we are looking at reimagining this human made structure so that today it's being used more as a dump yard where it exists, or it is being encroached upon because there is nobody to take care of it, or nobody to really stand by it, and so it's getting covered up, and that's how we are losing it, right? So now we want to reimagine it in a way where it it looks attractive enough, not just attractive enough in terms of beautification, the ecology, the other aspects of it, but people do not, I think people only see monetary gains. At the end of the day, people don't see anything else. So how do you make people understand that this place is significant, and so we have to look at different ways of reimagining it, maybe in some form, like, the Sabarmati was reimagined. But yes, I do not agree with Sabarmati reimagination is correct. But maybe looking at this already human made structure as an important place, and how do you reimagine it so that it is actually preserved? And our
That's
idea also
you
is
are taking it round, round, round. So you have the answer in your own question because you
true.
are so emotionally attached to the initiative. Because the reimagination has to come from the collective. I think I was also presenting that
Hmm,
you have
hmm,
to come up with an idea, and that idea has to be conveying enough and comprehensive enough for people to understand what is that idea. Because I
hmm,
think when we write loosely as bringing the urban river water system back, ecosystem back, we are not really considering the ecosystem in the ecosystem way.
hmm,
So I think it is important to be transparent like water and be explicit. What is that reimagination this collective is
hmm,
is considering, and then go for, I mean, bring forth it to the people, to the government, that this is how we imagine. And for me, that's why this diagram on the homepage of MSA was very captive. So
yeah.
is that what we are reimagining, and what are the nuances of that reimagine? I mean, we do this in urban design projects in studios when we take the pocket and we detail it out and things like that. I think that's an exercise worth doing, and I'm sure institutes and universities are taking it up. And that is something should not come as a panacea, as I also mentioned. Case studies are good to learn.
Hmm,
Importantly, what not to do, but of course, some things which we can do.
yeah.
But that imagination has to be very localized. It should not come from anywhere else.
True. I really like
It
this
has to be
idea
on
of
pen and paper. It has to be put on pen and paper.
Yeah, I really like this idea that you proposed to the social ecological system framework. I think we should really, as a collective,
I'm there to
look
assist
it
you.
look into it.
I want to share a quick few funny questions with all of you. Again, go back to Menti, please, and it will be really last few bit. Then you learn how do we engage with it. Can you just go back to the Menti again, please? Yeah, very simple questions. I will change it. Do you see the Menti?
Yes.
Who is supposed to maintain that water body? Okay, we are enlightened souls, so us comes very loud. Because the commons problem is that it is when it is everybody, it is nobody's, and that's where the strength of collective lies. That there is a defined, dedicated group of people who are willing to take charge. Okay, I'm moving to the next one. I don't see science. I will prefer science. Write the actions local government must take. One action only.
In
Yes.
Chansad, they. Hello, can I interrupt?
Yes, please continue. Please go.
In Chansad, they developed the lake by Swaminarayan people, and if you can come and visit us, it will be great. We will see the lakefront development that has happened there, and people are going to see it and enjoy the beauty of the lake while restoring the lake. Also,
Where?
when
Nirja?
in
It is
near Baroda,
in Baroda, yes.
near Baroda. And it's
Okay.
a village. It's a village of Swaminarayan people, his
Mhm.
birthplace. There they have made this lake and they have restored the water body, and there people are going to see it.
Then
Also in Dharavi, we had a nala over there, and we said this nala should be maintained. Other people were saying it is foul smell and also this should be covered. And this idea I like very much, that you can convert it into a stream, on at least on paper when they design. But that was
no,
the
this
effort they
word has
needed
big,
to
big
settle there.
power, Nirja. The word has big power.
Yes,
Maybe it's
yes,
not applicable to Mysore, but it is applicable across the country. The how
right,
you
right,
define something.
right,
Because it's a very simple thing. Water development, riverfront development, or river conservation. They are completely two different projects. It will have completely different characteristics. And we have not yet had, we have lake restoration project. And in the guise of restoration, it is all development. Because restoration is completely different concept than development. Wow. I see some interesting things coming up. Okay, I think I have two more questions, and it is just to play with you and engage to see how we can engage and do some things together, just a tool. And I love to learn from you. Otherwise, how will I learn what you think? What actions designers, planners, architects may take? In the previous question, I would like to add, do not litter, please. I think that the only thing if we can teach our community not to litter, then we don't need to talk about cleaning it. And I think a bigger responsibility as a collective you have, Champa and Trivikram and all, the idea of manicured versus wilderness. If design can embrace wilderness, I think we are already winning towards ecosystem. We do not have room for wilderness in our design pedagogy. We always want to have a manicured way of looking things. It is again like putting the way we like to use religion, community, caste, language to put society in order. We want to put ecology into order that way. I move to the last question now. Write your willingness to work towards maintaining the water body. This is for Mysoreans. No, I think I have one more question, sorry, because I wish to ask you, what will you do? Okay, so more people are willing to do whatever it takes. So let's see, how do we go next? Not many people are responding to this question, so no problem. It takes time to really think, but we are doing in a fast track. I go to the next one. How will you contribute to doing this? You have to also read that before you select. That's why it takes time. You see, when we run a collective and we want to run a campaign, knowing your society, knowing your government becomes extremely crucial. And these are the tools. to find out, I remember when I was very young and walking around, I collected 800 signatures to get Thaltej Lake cleaned. And it was never cleaned, but it went through in last 20 years 3 times development, and the lake is now shrunk to even less than a private swimming pool. But it did undergo development 3 times. It has 3 rounds of compound wall, and now sometimes I'm sitting and cursing myself, did I really mobilize the lake too much and brought to the highlight, or no, it was anyway going to go through this urbanization process.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Mentioned. Thank you for the immense, intense, rigorous, and charged talk. I think we could feel the energy there. Mansee, really true. And really appreciate the knowledge shared here, your ideas on strengthening the collective and project formulation approach are most welcome, and wish there could be more in-depth conversations beyond this platform to help shape and streamline the current actions. Yeah, that's what Anjali Sharma says. Trivikram, do you have any question or anything to add to?
Not really question, but it is more of an awakening. Every time an interaction with ma'am is always an awakening. Amazing. It is. It's been almost 1.5 years that I met you, ma'am, back in Hyderabad. So this is the next interaction that I have today. I think the tagline goes very well. Science with conscience. That really struck me very well. And I think as an urban designer or whatever we are, I think it is always the nature first attitude needs to be taken ahead, even though we are designers and are uh, more of a capitalistic way of looking at the cities. I think we should also get back to the nature and do things in a much better way. I think the idea of Ian McHugh that you brought in with the design with nature is always a, Bible with which we actually go ahead in site planning activities as such. Even though even though things are taught in classes, at the end of the day, it is the market that dictates the idea with which people go ahead. So I think there needs to be a balance that needs to be brought in, where the nature or the environment needs to be given the first priority, not the second, but always the first. It should be the Pratama Pita, as we say. The first Dakshina has to be given to it, and then the next things have to happen. Thank you very much for all your insights. Thank you, Champa ma'am, for this opportunity for collaborating with us, and also my team member Shrikant, Prakriti, Prasanna Rao sir, and the whole team of IUDI for backing us on this particular aspect. And thank Mansee ma'am very much for putting IUDI on this platform on behalf of us. Thank you very much, Mansee ma'am, once again. Over to you, ma'am. Yeah.
Thank you. I just want to convey here that actually the social ecological system framework is something what Christopher Alexander did as pattern language.
Okay.
So
Yes.
we have to know
We've
that.
all been-
And my job, so Trivikram, just to share with all of you, because we know each other very well. My always, target is to reach your heart, not your head. That's
Yeah.
always my target. And that's why it is always very hitting and, charged.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Thanks to all of you. Thanks, Champa and
Yes,
Trivikram, to
thank
really
you
have
so
me here.
much. Yes,
An
I
honor
think
to
we've
be
learned a lot today. We have lots more question and discussion. I think we can go on and on. Yes, I think Christopher Alexander did not like pattern language couple of years later.
Yes.
That's another thing that we've learned. And as you said, one thing I just want to add, the same thing happens because you said monsoon, the water will be there. Yeah, the Mysore lakes get filled only in the northeast monsoon, okay, not in the southwest monsoon. But these days when we are visiting, because almost every month we are visiting from the beginning to the end, we do see water even in the summer and whatever. The reason is there is pipeline provided, and they are filling the lakes from the river.
Which is a
Okay, that's
disaster.
another thing that it's gone haywire. And I think we've got too many things to talk about. Definitely we'll catch up. Thank you so much, Mansee, for the lovely and very informative. And as you said, yes, you touched her heart. Don't worry about it. Okay.
Okay. You have a research assistant in me for future. Okay. Bye bye.
No, we are your student now. Okay. Yes. Thank
Bye
you so much on all
bye.
from
Take care,
on
all of
behalf
you.
of
Bye
all
bye.
the
Thanks. Bye.
organizing. Yeah.
Bye.
Bye bye.